money where all of that cost and time overspend is being paid for by EDF and CGN, its Chinese partner. At Sizewell C, our energy bills will start to see a nuclear tax go on from the day construction starts, and we'll be paying that tax throughout construction for a decade or more before a single light bulb is lit. And that's on top of a taxpayer's investment going in. And, you know, in response to what the professor has said, I mean, EDF has got experience at building this reactor before. It's got 4 other builds, all of which were disastrously late and overspent. And one of the only operating ones in China was offline for 12 months. Because of fuel failure. So this is a huge amount of money to invest in a reactor technology that hasn't really proven itself.
What's your reaction to that, Professor? Do you think there hasn't been enough evidence of this type of technology, of the particular design of this nuclear power plant to prove its efficacy?
No, I don't think that's the case, because this is very much an evolution of the previous designs that have been operated for pressurized water reactors. And it's taken on board decades of experience of operating these plants around the world. It is a very complex plant, and part of that complexity comes from inherent safety systems that have got greater active components where there is active intervention in the event of an issue, and also passive components, so that if there's power failures, that you don't get the sorts of issues you had with at Fukushima, with not being able to cool the reactor in the event of an outage. And in response to the particular issue of the China plant, that was because of an issue with the fuel pins and the cladding of the fuel, and that's not specific to the reactor design. That could happen in any PWR reactor type. So I think that the plants are now starting to come online and operate. There have been issues in the supply chain. I think that's entirely right. There have been issues in relearning the experience. But part of it is to say, because we have had this hiatus in the build for nuclear, we are now far more reliant on gas, which has got very expensive. And if we'd have taken the decision to build this 20 years ago, we would now have operating plant, we would have a more secure energy supply. Given that we've got the design, we can get it into operation, it is now the right time to be doing this.
Alison, let me bring you back in. Yeah. Isn't there a case for taking the longer view here and saying, yes, the government's looking at more onshore wind farms. The Prime Minister has his own difficulties with that issue at the moment, but that there needs to be another option, and that you've got to take that longer term view. I hear that what you're saying about the bills and any extra taxes that may go on to bills, but surely this long term view of Britain's energy security and energy independence has to be taken into account. What do you make of that argument?
Well, we don't consider Sizewell C to offer the UK energy independence. I mean, it's reliant on a French developer. I'd like to encourage the professor to talk to the Office of Nuclear Regulation about whether the root cause of the problems in China have been understood, because we don't think that's the case. It's now looking like they may need to go to overseas investors, which means that the money from hard-pressed households is going to go straight out of the country. And we're talking about a technology that's reliant on overseas uranium fuel. So, there's a big question mark about that. And because of the exceptionally long delivery time of a gigawatt project like Sizewell C, we're going to see our energy landscape be transformed in the meantime. And the irony is that nobody's...
What would the alternative be? What would your alternative be, Alison?
Well, we've seen increasing numbers of energy models that show that very high levels of renewables, with just the small amount of nuclear that Hinkley Point C and Sizewell B's life extension would provide, are the least cost option. We're going to see great advances in storage in the future as well. I mean, the government admits its own modelling has failings in trying to sort of predict how that would roll out. But I mean, our sense is that Sizewell C is not only not needed, but we could be spending £30 billion on a project that by the time it's built isn't going to contribute anything